Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Thank you very much for joining us here on our YouTube channel for episode number 895. Well, I am going to present to you today an incredible story, the very seeds, the very roots, the very growth of an entrepreneurial venture. It's been going on, well, this is in its fourth year, and not coincidentally, the owner, the creator of this business is in her fourth year of high school. This is an FFA entrepreneurship story that is going places. Very, very awesome story. I'm going to be interviewing Rachyl Kitten. She is coming to us from Slaton, Texas. She started her own feed business. She's milling her own feed, growing her own corn. Really, really a cool story. And she wants to keep it rolling even after the FFA and after high school. I cannot wait for you to hear this story, and we're going to get it started for you right now. Joining me today is Rachyl Kitten, and she is coming to us from Slaton, Texas, and she's currently serving as her chapter's president as well as her region's vice president, or district's vice president there at Slaton High School in Slaton, Texas. So Rachyl, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it is my pleasure. I love Texas. So getting to talk to people about Texas and learning about their areas of the state is always a pleasure for me, and I am looking forward to it. And speaking of that, are you back in school, or do you have to do online school?
Right now, last Wednesday, they actually just shut us down for 2 weeks. So right now, we are completely virtual until next Wednesday.
That's interesting. Had you gone back and then they shut you down, or did they shut you down before you went back?
Yes, sir. So we actually went back in August, and we actually started a hybrid schedule where half of our students went either Monday and Wednesday, and the other half went Tuesday and Thursday, and nobody went on Friday. And so the days that you stayed home, it was virtual, but now they just turned everyone virtual.
Did something happen? Did you guys get a bunch of cases in your school or something like that?
Yes, we had a couple outbreaks with a couple groups. Our band and football players, it was starting to spread, so they had to shut us down.
Oh, man. Well, that's a bummer. Well, I don't know. My daughter's in the same boat, and I think she'd prefer to be in class 5 days a week, and if not, at least those 2 days a week during that hybrid schedule. But I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the hybrid schedule, getting to go to class 2 days a week, and then we could stay home 2 days a week. But really, since it's my senior year, I'm just ready to go back to school.
Yeah, I do not blame you at all. I felt bad for the seniors last year, but we don't want to do that 2 years in a row.
That's right.
Okay. All right. I'm going to mark an edit here because I am about to sneeze. So
Okay, that's fine.
Excuse me. Sorry about that. Oh, at least I could feel it coming. Okay.
That's right.
All right, we'll jump back in, Rachyl. Well, Rachyl, I would love to get to know more about you before we start talking about your supervised agricultural experience and all of that. So where you're at in Texas, are you living on a farm? Are you living in town? Or do you maybe live in something kind of in the middle of those two?
Well, I actually was born and raised in a cotton field, so I live out in the country.
Okay.
I've never lived in town.
Never lived in town. And born and raised in a cotton field. Literally?
Literally, I am in the middle of a cotton field as we speak.
Okay. Well, that is interesting, and it's always interesting when I get down there and when I do drives through West Texas to see all the cotton and see and all the gins everywhere. And then it was fascinating the first time I was down there and I saw the bales of cottons and everybody's got them baled up, and it's very interesting. So is that a farm that has been in your family for some time?
This one that we live on, we actually just farm it. We don't own it, but we do have multiple farms in Slaton, Texas that have been in the generations.
Oh, okay. So you're a proud Texas family going back to when, do you know?
We have actually been farming in Texas since the 1950s. So
since the 1950s.
It's been a few decades.
When did your family come to Texas?
Our family started coming to Texas in the early 1920s. And so we didn't quite start farming until the 50s.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, very interesting to me. I read a lot about Texas. I'm reading a really great book about Texas right now called Empire of the Summer Moon. which is all about the western migration in Texas, the Comanche Indians, and things like that. And of course, the area that you live in. I mean, for 100, 120, well, probably 60 years, 70 years of Texas history, you couldn't go there. It did not belong to, it belonged to the Comanches, and they owned it. So it's really interesting stuff. I don't know if you've ever gotten into that history, but I kind of geek out on that every now and then. It's very interesting stuff.
It is very interesting.
All right. Okay. So now, what kind of farming is your family involved in outside of cotton, or is it just cotton?
Well, we mainly do cotton, but sometimes we do sunflowers. Mm-hmm. We raise a little bit of corn annually, as well as milo or hay grazer, just whatever we really need in between cotton.
Hay grazer, yeah. My in-laws definitely have fed some hay grazer to their cattle down there in Abilene or south of Abilene. Interesting. And now,
yes,
is your farm irrigated, or are you strictly off of Mother Nature?
We have both irrigated and dryland cotton.
Okay. Yeah, it's sorry, I know I'm going in all sorts of different directions here, but I've read a ton about the irrigation out there and the Ogallala Aquifer and all of that goes on. So, yeah, at least I can prove that when I say I love Texas, I actually read about it and know about it. There's quite a bit there that's really interesting. All right.
That is true, yeah.
Well, how long have you been in the FFA?
I have been in the FFA for the past 8 years. I started showing in 3rd grade, but then I didn't actually join the Slaton FFA chapter until my freshman year of high school.
Okay, that is the longest span from a high school senior I've ever heard said before. Now, well, I've had one student who said that she was raised at an FFA camp, so she's been in the FFA her whole life, but, not literally. But you've been showing through the FFA for 8 years, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's a first for me. So how does that work? You're 17 now, so when you were 9 years old, were you showing in a blue jacket? I mean, how was it incorporated into the FFA?
So for Slaton FFA, we actually have our junior chapter.
Okay.
And so I have 2 older brothers, so I actually got to see them. They didn't join the FFA as early as I did.
Okay.
But I got to see them join the FFA, and it really made me want to join this organization because I got to see all the cool things that they got to do and all the amazing experiences that they got. And so I actually went with my brother when he went to sign up to start exhibiting market swine.
Okay.
And I then learned that you could start showing in 3rd grade. And at that time, I was in 3rd grade.
Okay.
So I signed up right beside my brother, and we just kind of learned together.
Okay. Well, that's great, and it's wonderful you had a mentor like that with your brother. Now, most students that I interview who started showing at that age started in the 4-H, but was that different for you there in Slaton?
Yeah, that completely different. I actually didn't join the 4-H until about 2 years ago.
Oh.
So in Slaton, we weren't really big in 4-H. We were big in FFA. And so I got my start in FFA and then slowly also joined the 4-H.
That is interesting. So then at age 9, were you going to FFA meetings? And when you showed, did you show under the name of the Slaton FFA chapter?
Yes, that's correct. So I wasn't actually the senior FFA shower, but I was a junior part of the Slaton FFA. And so I didn't usually go to the chapter meetings. I got to go to the chapter banquets and anything that included the junior FFA members. I
like that. Now, how big a town is Slaton?
Slaton is not big of a town, but I guess it'd be bigger than some you would think. We are a 3A, and we have about 6,000 people in our population.
Okay. Do you have more than one high school in Slaton, or just the one?
No, we just have the one Slaton High School.
Okay. I like that. To me, that's about as big as I think a town should get. I like what your FFA chapter has done. I like that in a town where there's one elementary, or maybe there's a couple elementaries and probably one middle school, maybe 2, but they all filter into the same high school. And so everybody in town is supporting one high school. Everybody's behind that, whether it's the FFA chapter, whether it's sports, or whatever it may be, to me that really brings a community together. I really, really like that. And if I had my way, we wouldn't have any towns get any bigger than that, where there was just one high school. But is that the feeling there in Slaton, in the outlying areas where your farm is at, where everybody is part of one community because it all centers around one particular high school?
Yes, I would definitely say that. Slaton is a very strong knit community. We're always with each other, and so we are really strong. We're always trying to support each other, whether that be through athletics, through the FFA. It doesn't matter. We just want the best for our community, and we just are constantly trying to help each other.
That's great. I love that. Now, do you have a rival? Like, is there a rival high school or a rival town or something like that?
Definitely, I think Slaton has a couple rivals, definitely in athletics. For FFA, I think since this organization is all about trying to welcome other people, we don't have as many rivals.
Sure.
But definitely Idalou for athletics is one of our rivals and has been for a long time.
What was the name of that one?
Idalou.
Okay. Now that's fun. Very cool. Well, I like hearing that stuff, Rachyl. That is great. Well, okay, so you are serving. You're currently your chapter's president. Did that just start?
Yes, sir. That I have been the chapter president. That was actually from last year.
Okay.
But we haven't been able to conduct our new officer inductees. So I don't know what I'll be for this year, but for as of now, I am serving as the chapter president.
Your name is going to live on in the annals of Slaton FFA history, because in 30 years from now, when they look back and they talk about the year where we started school with coronavirus and we had to send kids home and there was no classes taking place, they're going to say, who was our chapter president and who led us through that? That is going to be Rachyl Kitten.
Well, I sure hope so.
All right. So you're doing that, and then you're also in the position right now of being your district's vice president?
That was actually my last year's term. I served as Lubbock District Vice President.
Oh, so that was last year before you became your chapter's president?
Yes, sir. That was actually my sophomore year. I decided to just kind of get out of my comfort zone and run for district office, and I actually got the vice president position.
Wow. Well, good for you. That seems like as a sophomore, and I'm projecting what I would have been like as a sophomore onto you, but as a sophomore, that would have been way outside of my comfort zone. Did it feel like a little step outside or a big leap outside?
For me, that was definitely a big leap, just because I had never tried to run for an officer position. I didn't like getting up and giving speeches in front of people. I was always kind of that shy kind of person, but I think that through the FFA, that really drew me out, and I had a bunch of very talented role models that actually pushed me to run for that position. So I think it was really a great experience for me.
Well, that is awesome. And I will tell you what, I have never regretted purposely stepping outside of my comfort zone. It has led me to a life that I used to think wasn't possible. So good for you. Keep doing that. Keep getting outside of your comfort zone. That is wonderful. Well, you talked about people pushing you. Now I know you've got to have some great FFA advisors there in Slaton. Would you mind just mentioning those folks really quick so we can acknowledge them?
Yes, of course. I'm very blessed to be part of the Slaton FFA chapter, and we have some very talented ag teachers. We have Adam Westbrook and Casey Jones that are our current FFA advisors at the moment.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for mentioning them. Really appreciate that. I'm going to take a second just really quick to mention a couple of our great sponsors that make this show possible, Rachyl. And I'm going to start off with Lacrosse Footwear. Everybody, you can find them over at lacrossefootwear.com. And I always love talking about lacrosse when I get to do my FFA interviews, because they are so proud to support the FFA by sponsoring $25,000 in scholarships and jackets as part of the Give the Gift of Blue program every single year. And it makes me very proud to be affiliated with them for everything they do for the FFA. And, of course, we use their Alpha Range boots here on our farm in Idaho every single day of the year. Whether I'm irrigating in the summer or I'm feeding in the winter, I've always got my Alpha Range boots on. You will not be sorry when you slip a pair of these on your feet, and please do so. You can find them over at Lacrosse footwear.com, or anywhere you buy your farm and ranch clothing. And then, of course, Powder River livestock handling equipment. Man, it's just, for me, growing up in the West, being around cattle, Powder River is one of those brands that has always been there. They've just been omnipresent, and I am so proud to have Powder River on my own farm for my own cattle now. We've got a Powder River squeeze chute, Powder River livestock panels, and I'll tell you what, going to Powder River livestock panels solved a lot of problems for me. They know how to build equipment for cattle, and they did that. We want you to do the same. Let your local farm and ranch retailer know you want to see that Powder River green out in their sales yard, and you can check out everything Powder River has to offer you over at powderriver.com. All right, well, Rachyl, let's talk about your supervised agricultural experience. So what have you been doing there?
Yes, so my current supervised agricultural experience, and one of my favorite, has been owning and operating my own swine feed business.
Okay. Expand. Tell me all about it. How does it work?
Yes, so it's something that I started my freshman year after me and my family kind of came up with the idea. Since we had such a large feed bill, we had a bunch of head of swine on our feed bill, and we were trying to come up with different ways of how to cut down the expense, because we started realizing that we were losing some of our profits from my swine breeding operation due to the price of feed.
Yeah.
And so we started researching different ideas, and through that research, we found out that some local breeders were using their own swine feed.
Okay.
And so since we grow corn annually, it just made sense, since it was readily available to us, that we would start using that to produce our own livestock. And so once we started doing that, it was kind of our trial run year, and we just used the feed for ourselves. And then our family started getting in on it, and they realized that they could also benefit from purchasing our livestock feed. And that's when I got the idea to turn this into my SAE project and into my own business, because I realized that other people other than my family could benefit from purchasing the quality livestock feed that they needed at an affordable price. And that is how I created Kitten Farm Feeds.
That is awesome. Okay. I've got a lot of questions. The first question I've got is, when you put that name out there, Kitten Farms Feeds, do you ever get somebody who goes, "Oh my goodness, you farm kittens"? I just want to know, has that ever happened?
It definitely it does happen. I get a lot of comments about my last name, and I don't know if they're serious or not, but yes, I have gotten some comments about that. Probably
more in a joking fashion. Poor sense of humor like I have, and I had to make the obvious joke. Okay. Now, this business, the roots of this are when you're 9 years old, your brother is joining the FFA, you see what's going on, he's going to show hogs, and you decide to do the same, or market swine. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then that has evolved all the way to you being a state proficiency winner in the state of Texas for ag sales. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Wow. That's awesome. And I know you're not done, but those are already two very interesting bookends. So you and your family, you're making a feed ration out of the corn that you're growing on your farm there?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. A lot of questions. So I would assume, as you started doing that, it's probably evolved to the point where you're looking at how to come up with a correct feed ration, how to get enough energy, how to get enough protein, how to get enough lysine, all of that. Has it risen to that level for you?
Yes, definitely. Once we started doing this, it was kind of laid back. We weren't thinking about adding any medications or lysine. And of course, that was our first year. It was just kind of trial and error, trying to figure out what is going to be best for us and for our show animals.
Okay.
But as we progressed and as I started to turn this into my business, I realized that I was going to have to do some more research on, what show swine needs at their developmental stages. And so now it has turned into, I catch my corn each year that I use for my feed, but then I also add in soybean meal and liquid fat, lysine, and different medications if that is what my customers need. So yes, it has definitely evolved over the years.
Very cool. So how much, let me just back up. Is corn now that it's evolved, is corn the only ingredient that you're growing on your farm, or are you able to grow some? I don't know if you can grow soybeans there or not. You tell me.
Well, we still only grow the corn that we use. I
Okay.
actually purchased my soybean meal from High Pro Feeds in Clovis, New Mexico.
Okay.
And then I purchased the rest of my products that I need from HF&C or Tractor Supply.
Okay. Because even if you could grow the soybeans, you would still have to make the soybean meal. You've gotta roast them and do all of that, right?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. So you grow your own corn, and then you're outsourcing, or you're purchasing the rest of the ingredients, and then you're mixing it on your farm?
That is correct, yes.
Now, did you have to purchase a feed mixer? Did you already have one, or is this something you're doing by hand?
So we actually had a corn grinder in our barn that my grandfather used to didn't use anymore, so we got to fix that up.
Okay.
And then what I use for mixing, because I only mix 100 pounds at a time, so I just use an old concrete mixer. I know it's kind of old school, but that's how I have found it the easiest for me.
I love it. That is called bootstrapping. So you fixed
That is
up,
correct.
yeah, you fixed up an old piece of equipment, and then you converted an existing piece of equipment, and that has saved you tens of thousands of dollars to start this business.
That is correct.
I love it. That's perfect. I love it. And you know what? Well, we'll find out where this is going here in a second. But if this is something you're going to continue with, one of these days, the profits from this business are going to go right back into a feed mixer, and you'll look back on the days you did it in a cement mixer, and you'll smile, and you'll go, I paid my dues. Yeah, that is
That's
great.
right.
So you're doing 100 pounds at a time. I mean, I've got pigs. I feed pigs, and so if you're doing it 100 pounds at a time, that means you're mixing feed, because if you've got customers as well, you're mixing feed daily or a couple times a day? I mean, how often?
So I actually produce my feed. I mix it a ton at a time.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I can usually do that. Well, it depends on what my customers are needing and how much they need.
Okay.
But I can do that twice a month, maybe.
Okay.
It depends on the time of the year and if it's my busy season or not. But
I've got it. So your recipe is 100 pounds at a time, but a batch is a ton.
yes, so I actually measure out my corn and soybean meal per the ton, and then I actually have my corn grinder where I grind down my corn. I add in my soybean meal into the auger as well as a show-based mix that I use,
Okay.
and then I auger it out into a white seed tote, and that's when I bring it into the barn to use my concrete mixer where I add in my liquid fat, my lysine, and my Tylen.
Okay. And so when it's done, so you're doing the 100-pound batch in the concrete mixer. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And so when that is done and that is ready, then are you going into bulk bags with it, or are you bagging everything like into a 50-pound bag or something like that?
Yes, I use 50-pound bags, just how that's been the most efficient for me for my customers, because not all of my customers want a ton, not some of them don't even want 200 pounds. So the 50-pound bags have been very efficient for me.
How do you close the bags?
So my bags, they are sewed on one end, and the other end is still left open. It has a self-adhesive label on the other side, so I just fold it over. Gotcha.
Okay. So that's smart. That again, and so I'm assuming you're purchasing those bags somewhere.
Yes, I actually purchased them from Standish Milling Feeds. I believe it's up in Missouri. I get it in bulk. I can buy 1,000 bags at a time, and they're only 70 cents a bag, so it saves me a lot of money. And I haven't even had to order more yet. So
this is interesting. Did you research the difference between buying a bag that you would have to sew shut on top, but then of course you'd have to buy the equipment to sew it shut or lace it or whatever the correct terminology is, and compare the cost of buying that piece of equipment, but maybe the cheaper bags without the self-adhesive versus just getting the self-adhesive? Did you look at both options?
Yes, I definitely did. And of course, I wanted, as my business is growing, I wanted to look more professional and get the bag that is sewn on both ends. But at the moment, I don't feel that I'm at a growth rate right now where
Sure.
I need to be having those bags and buy that piece of machinery. The self-adhesive bags work well for me right now, but maybe as later on, as I grow my business and I progress, I will purchase that piece of machinery.
Gotcha. Well, I love it. I love the way you're doing it, because what matters here is the quality of the feed. And yes, at some point the look and the image of professionalism comes into play, but right now you're in the FFA. You're 17 years old. You've got a great story to go along with how you're bootstrapping this business. And quite honestly, the fact that you are bootstrapping it and you're getting it done by any means necessary, I think is probably part of what makes people take pleasure in buying from you. So I love the aspect of you doing that. Now, the bags that you're buying for your feed, are you able to get those bags branded with Kitten Farms feed put on it, or are they just at this point kind of a generic plain bag that you're bagging it into?
Yes, at the moment they're just a generic plain brown sack that you eat. But later on, like I said, I hope to have my brand labeled on these bags. But right now, since you buy them so much in bulk, they don't really allow you to customize them, but maybe later on that is something that I aspire to do.
Well, that is fine as well. Now, so let me ask you about the label. So are you being regulated by the USDA or the FDA or anything like that, where you have to put a label and list out the percentages of everything and all the different ingredients that's in your feed ration?
So yes, that's a great question. That's one thing that I had to do a lot of research before actually turning this into a business. But while through my deliberate research, I went on the FDA website, the USDA website, and since I am a small I'm a private miller, I don't have regulations on me per se, but there are certain guidelines that I do have to follow. And so since I do not have to have my bags labeled, I do have those guidelines that I have to follow. They have to be made under sanitary conditions. They cannot be poisonous. And my label is my feed analysis report that I have done twice a year at A&L Analytical Labs in Lubbock, Texas. And so every time that someone purchases my product, I also give them that feed analysis report.
Awesome. Now, at this point, do you have one ration, or have you gone into multiple rations, one for starting, one for growing, one for finishing, that type of thing?
Yes, right now I produce a 16, 18, and 20% protein feed.
Oh, you do? So you've got 3 separate rations.
Yes,
wow,
sir.
That is impressive. Now, so just a side note, in terms of the classes you take in high school and the things you're interested in, are you mathematically inclined? Do you like chemistry? Do you like math? Things like that?
Math is definitely not my favorite subject, but luckily I am pretty good at math, so that has definitely helped me.
So not your favorite, but you've got the skills.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I've got an animal science degree, and I think my second semester of college I took feeds and feeding. I still have the textbook, and if I look at it, it still intimidates me. I've never been able to understand how to put together feed rations and to do all of that. So that, to me, is already unbelievably impressive. Okay, phenomenal business. Let's talk about marketing for a second. How have you been getting the word out to people that you have pig feed to sell?
Yes, so when I first started this business, obviously I don't have the capacity to market as much as, different feed corporations do. So the first thing that I did is I just went up to my ag teachers and I asked them if they would be willing to allow me to make a presentation to present my information to my local chapter. And so they were very willing. So I put together a PowerPoint. I brought free samples and my feed analysis reports. And I actually gave a presentation to the Slaton FFA chapter. And that's how I started my business. I got, a couple of my friends into buying my feed. But then after that, I knew that I wanted to expand my customer base and I wanted to grow my business. And so I knew that I had to go outside of my chapter. So I started going to the Lubbock County stock shows or any jackpots that were close enough for me to attend. And I started hanging up my flyers, talking to anybody that would listen. And I also brought my free samples and feed analysis reports again. And I reached out to other ag teachers to see if any of his student or their students could benefit from purchasing my livestock feed. And that's how I expanded my customer base. But then also in this day and age, social media is a heavy influencer. So I have definitely utilized various social media outlets such as my chapter's Facebook, my personal Instagram or Twitter, just to get my product out there to the different age demographics.
That is awesome. So did I hear you correctly that after you presented to your FFA chapter, you went to different high schools and presented to theirs?
Well, I went to my Lubbock County livestock show or jackpot shows.
Gotcha. And how did you arrange that? Did you get out and did you do a presentation to show people the feed that you'd created?
Actually, I didn't get to present a presentation, but I did just to get out and talk to people, just to communicate with other people, and I got to talk to them about my feed and see if maybe they would try a free sample and kind of go from there.
Okay, so shaking hands, walking up to people. Good for you. That's not an easy thing to do. Wow, that's great. And so now social media, you're using that as well. What forms of social media are you using?
I just use my personal, my Instagram account or my Twitter account. And, you know, social media goes out to everybody. So that's definitely something I've tried to utilize. But then again, I'm such a small business. That's just my main form of trying to market my product.
Yeah, just keeping your brand in front of people and making sure they remember that you're there. That is great. Okay, so Kitten's Farms Feed began in what year? Did you say your sophomore year?
It began in my freshman year. My 8th grade year is when we started producing it just for my family, since we had so many head of swine. But really, I took it over my freshman year and started a business with it.
Okay, so you started in 9th grade, so you're on your 4th year of this business. So how has your customer base grown since that very first year?
Yes, it has definitely grown. My first year after I presented to my chapter, I had about 10 customers. But then my next year, once I started going to the county shows and jackpots, I actually grew to about 25 customers. And right now I still have those 25 dedicated customers. But now I have some people that if they're heading to a stock show and they just need a couple bags, they swing by my farm or just, you know, not my regulars, but some extra people.
Okay. Wow, that's great. Now, the ingredients you're getting from Clovis, New Mexico, how is that? How are you driving over there and picking it up? Are they dropping it off at your place in a shipment? How are the logistics of that being handled?
Yeah, so this one is actually kind of a weird one. So I actually drive to Clovis, New Mexico, where I get 2 tons at a time of the soybean meal.
Okay.
I negotiate, I wouldn't say a contract, but I negotiate them with them each year that if I buy 8 tons of their soybean meal, my price won't increase, because I've been doing this for the past 4 years. So the price of soybean meal has definitely increased. But if I keep buying 8 tons of soybean meal from them each year, then they will keep that price at the same rate.
That is great.
So that's what I do.
Good for you. So you're going and picking it up, and you're negotiating a special rate based on volume.
Correct.
That is awesome. Okay. So I've been dying to get to this part. So this is your senior year. You've got a year to go, and then you're done with high school. What are your future plans for the business?
Well, as of right now, I plan to keep going with Kitten Farm Feeds. I plan to grow, and hopefully someday that would be my source of income, is just Kitten Farm Feeds.
Okay.
But definitely I plan on attending Texas Tech University to major in agribusiness, and hopefully keep this business going through college.
That is great. So you've discovered entrepreneurship and you like it. You want to stick with it.
Yes, I definitely enjoy it. It's something that interests me.
That is awesome. Okay, so that's the business side of that question. What does the future hold for you? What about the FFA side? What do you have future goals for what you want to do in the FFA that is related to what you've been doing so far and with your state proficiency award?
Well, I'm a national finalist for this proficiency award, so
Awesome.
hopefully I can hopefully be a national winner in this area proficiency. But if not, next year I plan on trying to do the same thing in a different category and see if I can try my luck there. But if not, I definitely plan to keep this going and try to join the Texas Tech Collegiate FFA
Mm-hmm.
if willing.
Oh, that's awesome. So, probably an American degree in your future. I'm envisioning. Is that something that you've got in mind?
Yes, it's something that I have in mind right now, but unless my life takes a 180, that's what I plan.
Okay, and then you're a national finalist this year, so you could be a national proficiency winner here in about a month.
That is correct.
Oh, good luck to you. That is awesome.
Thank you so much.
I've got to tell you, I feel like this project has got not just national proficiency winner, but national star winner on it. What do you think about that?
Well, I sure hope so, but only God knows. So
Okay, be humble. You should be humble. I will tell you, do you know or have you heard of Megan Trantham?
I have heard of her, yes.
Okay, she was a guest on my show right when I first started, I think in 2015, just not too far from you in Boise City, Oklahoma. And she had done kind of a similar thing to you, except she was purchasing her feed from Oklahoma City and from Tulsa, I believe, and then trucking it all the way back to the Panhandle and then selling it to people around her. And then pretty soon she started taking deliveries. In your case, you are much closer to vertical integration, meaning you're growing your own corn, you're milling your own corn, you're buying some ingredients, and then you're putting together and bagging the rations yourself. It's a great project. Man, I see a lot of potential here. It's a great project, Rachyl, really. And I interview hundreds of FFA students every year. Everyone's awesome. They've got great talents and abilities and projects. Yours stands right at the top of that. You've got a great project. I'm really excited for you.
Well, thank you. I sure do appreciate that.
That is great. Well, good for you. Well, this is very exciting, and I can't wait to find out where this goes at the virtual national convention this fall. And have you been to the national convention before?
No, I have not. I was hoping that this would be my year, but I guess I'll just be at home watching it. But.
All right. Here's the deal. You and I are going to shake hands a year from this October when you're a national star finalist, okay? And
okay.
And when you're there, and I'll be there, and everything will be back to normal, and you will have gone to your first convention, not as a proficiency finalist, but as a star finalist. How about that?
Well, I'll be working for it then.
Yeah, keep working on that record book so you can do that. That is awesome. Well, I am very proud of you, proud to get to know you and to hear your story. Really, really enjoyed hearing this one. Before we finish up, I want to ask your advice for other students that are coming behind you. You know, you're paving a great path for people coming behind you. What pushes you? What motivates you? Why go to all this work?
You know, some advice that I would give is that if you have a goal, if you have a dream, if you're willing to work for it, go for it. You have to believe in yourself. If you don't think that you can do this, trust me, look at me, you can. I was a freshman when I started this business. I had no idea that it would come to this. But if you are willing to work for something, and if you're willing to put in the dedication and the long hours, then it can be yours as long as you want it. So just keep pushing. Find something that drives your passion. Find something that you know you're going to work for it and that you want it. And trust me, you can do whatever you want.
That's awesome. That's great advice. I really appreciate that. And I know I told you that was the final question. However, I thought of another question. And I wanted to ask you this because I love your entrepreneurial spirit. How much time do you spend either listening to or reading or consuming some form of material to help either motivate you or teach you about being an entrepreneur and developing and growing your business?
Well, before I started this business, I was not a big reader. I didn't like to sit down and just try to learn new things. But once I started this business, I knew that with my age and with my lack of experience, if I wanted to be successful, I was going to have to start learning. And so I try my best that any free time that I have, even if it's in the truck, I'm listening to an agricultural podcast, something where I'm gaining new information to try to further my business and make it more successful.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you're listening to Ag Podcasts. That is the business I am in. Now, I'm going to tell you some advice I've been giving to my listeners since we started this show in 2014. And this is from me. This is from me trying to find my way back into agriculture as an entrepreneur and realizing that there weren't as many resources available to me that were ag specific. So sometimes those of us in agriculture who want to have our own businesses in ag, we have to leave ag and then come back. And when I say leave, I mean that very, very metaphorically. What I mean is sometimes we've got to listen to experts in business, experts in marketing and things like that, who don't know anything about agriculture, but they know a lot about marketing and they know a lot about business. And so we got to go grab their information, and then we've got to mold it and bring it back and make it fit in agriculture. And that's why I was asking you that, because I love the fact that you're listening to ag podcasts. But at a certain point, as you evolve as a business person, it's almost like preaching to the choir. It's almost like an echo chamber because you've been so involved in ag for 17 years now. So don't be afraid to get outside of ag a little bit on those podcasts, on some of those books, and learn from some other people, and then just adapt that back to agriculture. A couple recommendations I'd have for you are one is Amy Porterfield. She's got a podcast, very nice voice, really enjoyable to listen to, and she does a podcast all about marketing on social media, and she does a really, really good job. She stayed at the top of the heap for many, many years. That's one I would recommend to you. Another very inspirational entrepreneur who uses a lot of F-bombs in his stuff. So I'm sorry about this in advance. If your parents don't like this, just put it off till you're 18 or 20 or something. But a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, I don't know if you've listened to him, but super inspirational and just absolutely as honest as you can be when it comes to telling people how to build a business and how to put some things off for a few years so you can build the life you want going forward as an entrepreneur. So those are a couple pieces of advice for you. But man,
thank you very much.
You bet. I love your story, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing it today.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come on here.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you very much to Rachyl Kitten for coming on and sharing that great story with us today. And hey, as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.